Hello people, welcome to Life Study Library. This is your host Lye Yosh. In this channel, you'll be able to learn about these interesting and educational info about science and psychology that can greatly help you in life. This video will be about multitasking and how and why, despite the popularity, it's actually doing you harm. If you're interested, please enjoy listening to the episode, and if you want to continue listening to these interesting and educational science and psychology, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and also share to others that this channel exists. Okay, let's get going. So I've said in the previous video, and there are also numerous studies that claims multitasking will actually do you more harm than good. And in the modern scientific world, it honestly has become a common understanding. While researching for this topic, I've came across an infographic that explains how much productivity you are losing by multitasking. And the infographic was really interesting because it talked about how multitasking even lowers your IQ, and many studies have proven that effect. So yeah, real scary stuff. But you should know that there's another scary factor to be careful about, which is task switching. And that's what we're going to focus on today. According to a study done at the University of Minnesota on 2009, simply switching your attention from one task to another can destroy your productivity. Let me explain. The study has found that switching your attention from one task to another tends to be difficult for people, as this act lowers their task performance. This applies to, for example, if you are a student and you want to work on an essay, but there's only like 10 to 15 minutes to do so before you have to go somewhere. Clearly not enough time to finish an excellent essay for many people. So you're trying to finish as much as possible by using your full attention and energy. But then the time comes for you to go to the next class. So you pause your attention on the essay writing and go to the class. But then, because you were so focused on the essay, now you're not able to shift your attention from the essay to focusing on the class. And so you lose focus in that activity and end up not understanding the class material. Even on an unconscious level, things like this can happen all the time, whether in school or in work. This is called the attention residue, as you're not able to use your cognitive resource to the most important task, which is focusing on the current activity. But it's not surprising for you to think, so what can we do now? There is this thing called the single tasking, which is you paying your full attention to a single activity. And according to science, this is the best option you can take to see actual productivity in whatever you're working on. I've made some videos on this concept and also on what's called the flow, the potential result of your single tasking, in which you experience a state of hyper focus where you pay attention to nothing else but the activity in front of you. You can check out the video in the description after finishing this one, but I'll elaborate on the result of this study. Today's study used 162 students and put them into 4 separate scenarios where they first spent 5 minutes on task A, completing fill-in-the-blank questions, then worked on task B, reviewing multiple resumes for 5 minutes. The first group essentially single-tasked, so they started and completed task A before starting on B. The second group worked on task A until midway, then started working on B. The third group started and completed task A in a predetermined time, then worked on task B. The fourth group worked on task A in a predetermined time, then started on task B, without finishing A. So the study was pretty much looking for a mitigation of this attention residue based on the existence of a time limit. Okay, result time. According to the study, those who switched between tasks failed to perform well in the second task, whether or not they finished the first one. But those who set a certain time limit to complete the first task had a 30% increase in their performance during the second task. What this means is that if you switch between tasks without setting a time limit, even if you had finished the first task in the process, you will have a lower performance during the second one. This also means that in order for your high performance to continue through the second task, you must set a time limit to work on the first, and the completion of that does not matter. Interesting, isn't it? The study doesn't really clarify on the mechanism of why this happens, but it's assumed that the understanding of the completion of one task under a set time limit becomes evidence for you to be assured of your ability to finish the rest. I would also say that by setting a deadline, your brain now knows a clear endpoint to relax and stop pumping gas. This is pretty important, right? If your brain doesn't understand or receive a sign of an endpoint, it'll unnecessarily overwork by itself until it breaks. Again, the concept of your brain power being a limited fuel is emphasized. And as a modern day worker who will most likely have to multitask in many areas of life, we must set a clear endpoint to our workload and be able to finish at least the first task in the line. And this suggests some practical tactics you can use, like making sure you start out your chain of work with things you can easily complete so that this whole process can be achieved. And who knows, maybe I can make another video that specifically talks about scientifically proven tactics you can use to increase productivity. You can also be flexible and customize these tactics to fit your own work schedule. But the main point I want y'all to bring home is to stop multitasking and instead focus on starting and completing one task at a time at a set deadline. Okay, that was the topic for today's video. That seemed like a shorter video, but anyways, thank you for watching until the end. Again, if you want to learn more about this flow state, one of the biggest benefit of single tasking, I have my recommended video down in the description, so you can check that out. In terms of productivity, effectiveness, or efficiency, I think this is a really important thing you should know about. But of course, just knowing about its existence without somehow turning it into your own weapon is not the most productive use of knowledge. So, if you want to know more about how you can apply this concept to your daily life, science recommends you to hone this thing called the flow state. But what the heck is this? To give you a simple definition, this flow is a psychological state where you experience 100% concentration with your activity, and any other unrelated task or information seems to shut down and become invisible. It's what many athletes typically call being in the zone. I think that's the best example of flow in the athletic field, at least. Another example of flow in the academic field is when you're genuinely curious about the topic of study. If you nerd out with mechanical engineering or literature, or if you're like an ultra math nerd, and whenever you do these activities, you often experience time literally melting away. Anyone ever had that experience? Basically, if you're really interested in that activity, you've most likely experienced flow, the ultimate form of focusedness and concentration. What you might be thinking now is, this flow seems like it would be very useful if I can use it towards things that are important but unenjoyable. I wonder if that's even possible. If you want answers to this question, or if you want to become more productive in many areas of life, I will be using scientific information and studies to talk about what it's all about in one of my videos called What is Flow? Finding your ideal environment to concentrate and perform. This video's main topic is about how you can deliberately enter the state of flow. There are these triggers that are custom made for yourself that you need to find out in order to optimally enter the state of flow. You might have noticed that many of the world's renowned athletes tend to have a ritual of some kind before an important game. For example, the former baseball player Ichiro was known for always having a routine before the game, where he would eat the same meal, practice the same sets of training, have his entire living moment before the game into a predetermined routine. This is a very well recognized concept that might not be so new to many of us, but this video talks about some more important concepts to keep in mind when trying to enter the flow state. The video is in the description section, so if you're interested, you should definitely go check it out. And then for my recommended book you should read, I will recommend a book called The Rise of Superman: Decoding the Science of Ultimate Human Performance by Stephen Kotler. So I hope I persuaded you enough for you to think that this flow state is a pretty interesting being. And if you've actually tried to activate the skill a couple times, you most likely know that it's pretty difficult. Many of you might be able to enter the flow for a moment, but far too soon gets ejected. And the reason why this often happens is because the flow state is, in a sense, humanity's emergency button. According to evolutionary science, this ultimate concentration is a trait that is acquired not only by humans but by all living beings because of the need for survival. If some kind of a threat is fast approaching, we need to concentrate every single cell in our body to run or fight or defend ourselves in some way. On the other hand, if we saw something like food or fresh water, or in the modern example, like an attractive person who seems rich, resources that'll increase the chance of our survival. These cases as well, we also needed to focus every single cell in our body to attain that resource. This means that the key for us to activate flow is to generate our instinctive motivation to survive. And that's why I thought today's book was interesting, because this book talks about the world of extreme sports. Things like cave diving, base jumping, wingsuit flying, volcano boarding, or bungee jumping, activities many consider as highly dangerous. Basically, the author of this book claims that by putting yourself in a very dangerous state, you make your brain think, what am I doing? I need to live. And this sense of extreme danger, along with a very important resource that we need, which is the chance for you to live, you will be able to effectively enter the flow state. So it doesn't suggest you to just perform a dangerous activity like standing in the middle of the busy highway just for fun, but you need to have a purpose, a very important purpose, which in the case for extreme sports athletes is to survive through the entire activity. I'll put that to make sure I'm not suggesting you to go start doing any dangerous activities that may put others and yourselves at risk. And the book provides evidence that these extreme sports athletes do tend to enter the flow state more easily than the general population. And I know that most of you cannot afford to risk your lives to experience flow. So I'll talk more about this whole thing some other time in my future videos, but you should definitely check out the book, The Rise of Superman, Decoding the Science of Ultimate Human Performance by Stephen Kotler. And with that finished, that was it for today's video on Life Study Library. I've been your host, Lye Yosh. Please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to listen to more science and psychology that can greatly improve your life. Again, I've been your host, Lye Yosh, Life Study Library. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye now!